Here in the United States, the current administration is considering a nationwide ban on adding fluoride to public water. Is this a long overdue correction of bad policy or a public health disaster in the making? Today, we're going to take a look at the arguments for and against this very widespread practice. Hello, and welcome to the Nutrition Diva podcast, a show where we take a closer look at food and nutrition news, research, and trends so that you can make more informed choices about what you eat. I'm your host, Monica Reinagel, and today we're going to take an objective look at the arguments for and against the practice of adding fluoride to public water supplies. Fluoride has been added to public water for decades, primarily to prevent tooth decay. In fact, many health experts regard this as one of the greatest public health achievements of the 20th century, right up there with folic acid fortification programs that dramatically reduced the incidence of devastating birth defects. Or the iodine fortification of salt, which significantly reduced cognitive impairments due to iodine deficiency. Nevertheless, fluoridation has also been an ongoing source of debate and controversy, with critics raising concerns about health risks, ethical implications, and environmental impacts. Most recently, moves by the current U.S. administration to potentially ban water fluoridation nationwide have reignited this decades-old debate. So in today's episode, we'll take an objective look at both sides of the controversy. As I said, the primary purpose of water fluoridation is to prevent tooth decay, and it does this by making your tooth enamel stronger and more resistant to the acids produced by bacteria in your mouth. And it also helps repair early stages of decay before actual cavities form. And the practice is very effective in reducing cavities, or caries, in both adults and children. The first fluoridation trial began in Grand Rapids, Michigan, back in 1945. And within just a few years, they saw a 60 to 65% reduction in childhood cavities. Trials in other locations echoed those early findings, and more recently, a 2015 Cochrane review found that children drinking fluoridated water experienced about 35% fewer cavities in their primary teeth and up to a 26% lower incidence in their permanent teeth, and adults also benefited with cavity reductions approaching 27%. It's very cost-effective, too. The CDC estimates that every dollar spent on fluoridation saves about $20 in dental care, and it helps to reduce disparities in oral health between wealthier and more economically disadvantaged communities. And there is also consensus among U.S. and global health authorities on the safety of this practice. The only real concern is that excessive exposure to fluoride can cause dental fluorosis. This is a cosmetic condition that can cause faint white streaks or spots on the teeth. But this is quite unlikely to occur at the levels of fluoride that are used in public water supplies. So, what are the arguments against this practice? Critics point to research suggesting that fluoride might be linked to cognitive impairment or hypothyroidism. Now, the vast majority of these studies are not looking at communities with fluoridated water, like we find here in the U.S. Instead, they're often focused on regions where fluoride occurs naturally at very high levels, well beyond what's considered safe or what you'd ever encounter in a treated U.S. water system. For example, some of this research comes from areas in China, India, or parts of Africa where natural fluoride concentrations are 3 to 4 times higher than the concentrations that are used for public water fluoridation. Nonetheless, the studies that were done to establish safety at these lower levels may not have been designed to detect subtler neurological or hormonal impacts from long-term exposure at lower levels. Accordingly, some argue that we need more targeted studies to conclusively rule these potential effects in or out. And until then, this remains an unresolved question. That unresolved question supports an argument that's based on autonomy, or an individual's right to choose what sort of health or medical interventions they receive. As I've noted in previous episodes, we don't all have the same tolerance for risk or for unresolved questions. And some believe that adding fluoride to public water is an overreach of authority. And finally, some question whether fluoride accumulating in waterways and ecosystems might adversely affect aquatic life or biodiversity over the long term. Again, there's no compelling evidence of any harm, but some are not satisfied that we've done a thorough enough assessment of these potential environmental risks. Water fluoridation isn't just debated here in the United States. This is a global discussion with different countries taking various approaches. And even within countries, the practice varies regionally, with about 2/3 of US citizens and about 39% of Canadians living in areas where fluoride is added to the public water supply. The practice is also very widespread in Australia, Brazil, and Ireland, where authorities strongly advocate for its public health benefits. Conversely, the European Commission maintains that topical fluoride treatments, such as toothpaste, would achieve similar outcomes without the systemic exposure or the ethical issues involved in water fluoridation. And so only about 2% of Europeans have fluoridated drinking water, and primarily in the UK, Spain, and Serbia. Countries such as Germany, Switzerland, and others prefer alternatives like fluoridated salt. So, as with iodized salt, this approach allows individuals to choose whether to use fluoride, balancing the public health benefits with personal autonomy. Other countries like Bulgaria, Chile, Peru, and Thailand have experimented with innovative solutions like adding fluoride to milk. So they're targeting children's dental health in particular. Asian countries like Japan rely on school-based fluoride mouth rinses instead. And notably, Israel discontinued mandatory fluoridation in 2014, citing ethical concerns about individual choice. All of this highlights the complexity of fluoride decisions. While the dental health benefits of fluoridation are undeniable, it's also important to acknowledge and consider the arguments that have been made regarding safety, ethics, and environmental impact. And I'm not here to tell you what you should believe about this, but if you are concerned about fluoridation, your first step would be to check with your municipal water authority or your local health department to find out whether your local water supply is fluoridated. If you're uncomfortable with fluoridation, you might consider a water filtration system that's specifically designed to reduce fluoride, although this obviously only will cover you at home. Most bottled water is pretty low in fluoride. Then again, a lot of folks are trying to cut down on bottled water in order to reduce exposure to microplastics. Personally, I would rather take my chances with fluoride. But if this is an issue that you care about, either because you would prefer that your water not be fluoridated, or because you don't want to see this practice discontinued, now is the time to make your voice heard, as this issue is now at the center of a very public debate. And if we do see a national ban on water fluoridation, it's important to recognize that this decision wouldn't impact everyone equally. Vulnerable communities, particularly those with limited access to dental care or lower incomes, would stand to lose the most from a ban on community water fluoridation, which, according to the American Dental Association, remains a cornerstone of oral health. But should that happen, and you are looking for other ways to protect your dental health, fluoride toothpastes and mouth rinses can help to fill that gap. Young children should be closely supervised so that you can minimize the amount of toothpaste or rinse that they swallow. And if you have an elevated risk of cavities for whatever reason, you may want to ask your dentist about prescription fluoride treatments. I hope you found this overview of the arguments for and against fluoridation helpful. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer, you can email it to me at nutrition@quickanddirtytips.com. If you'd like to find out about having me speak at your next live or virtual event, you can learn more at wellnessworkshere.com. Nutrition Diva is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast. Steve Riekeberg is our audio engineer. Brandon Getchis provides script editing. Holly Hutchings is the digital operations specialist. And Morgan Christensen heads up podcasting operations and advertising. We also get support from Nat Hoops. Thanks to all of them, and thanks to you for listening.